Hi, welcome to Clear Communication, a workshop through Fenzi Dog Sport Academy. My name is Sarah Brewski, and I'm so excited that you're watching this lecture video today. We have a lot of information to cover over the next hour. We'll be talking about developing multiple marker systems that are catered to you and your dog, as well as using a keep going signal called reverse luring or Zen hand, whatever you want to call it, to your system as well. All right, so now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into this. So the whole reason why we're even talking about multiple marker systems is because using communication clearly with our dogs is the most important part to any sort of training or relationship in general. Even human to human relationships, communication is by far the most important aspect of those relationships. And the better and clearer your communication is, the better your relationship is. Now, dog training would be so much easier if we could just talk to our dogs, but unfortunately that's not a possibility. And so it really is up to us as trainers to figure out the best way we can communicate to our dogs and be as clear as we possibly can, as well as listen to what our dogs are telling us along the way. Now, tonight we will be talking about marker systems and reverse luring, like I talked about, or like I already mentioned. I will say that the names reverse luring and Zen hand are pretty interchangeable for me. However, there are slight differences to those, and we'll definitely talk about them a little bit further down the line. Reverse luring seems to be the more popular term outside of Fenzi Dog Sport Academy. And it just seems sort of interchangeable. So just know that if I'm saying reverse luring, I might mean Zen hand, and it's the same thing in my book. Both of these things, the marker systems, are important aspects in developing clear communication within our training sessions for sure. Now, tonight we're definitely going to be talking about what are multiple marker systems, why do we need them, when should we use them, as well as how do we teach them. So we're talking about a lot this evening. We're going to start right off in the basics. Most of us know that a behavior occurs if we mark that behavior. That mark tells our dogs that that's the behavior we like and a reward is on its way. Well, this is definitely the case in the rules that we're going to stay with throughout the lecture here. A behavior occurs, we're going to mark that, and we're always going to reward after the mark. Now, the difference is what happens with that mark, is what is the mark itself and how are we rewarding our dog. So what are marker systems? They're any method of communication utilizing marking a behavior in attempts to reinforce that behavior. They can be super, super simple, like most of us already use yes or a click and then reward our dogs. That is a marker system. But they can also be super complex as well. And so that's where we're going to really get into it. And it can vary from dog to dog, handler to handler. Even within my dogs, I have 13 different dogs and they all have different marker systems. And it can be very confusing going back and forth between them, but it's really, really nice if I stay clear with them because then they really know what's coming, what to expect, and so on and so forth. The simplest of my marker systems would be for my disc dogs that solely they only play disc. They have yes means get the reward from my hand, whether it's food or a toy. Or get it means I'm going to throw it. So it might be throwing the food, it might be throwing the toy as well. So really they only have two different markers. And then we get all the way up to my super complex marker system. That would be for Creature, my monitoring dog. He has 16 markers the last time I count, and I'm always finding places for new ones. And so that's pretty complex. Most people don't have a need for a system that crazy, but there definitely is benefits for it. Now, before we really get too far into this, I want to talk a little bit about 3 different types of markers. The first one's reinforcement specific marker, and that tells my dog what type of reinforcer they're going to be getting. So that's food versus toy. Maybe it's bite the decoy versus bite the tug in my hand. Maybe it might be something even just ball versus frisbee. So that's what tells my dog what they're going to be reinforced with. I have location-specific markers, and that tells my dog where they're going to be reinforced. So that could be the toy in front of you versus the toy behind you. It might be run as fast as you can because I'm going to throw this ball way over there. It might be in heel position, duck behind me, and get the reward hidden behind my back. So that tells my dog where the reinforcement is going to be presented. And then we have delivery-specific marker, and it tells my dog how the reinforcement will be delivered. So this could be as simple as I'm going to throw the ball behind you versus to the side. or I'm going to deliver this treat super slowly to you, so please don't try to grab it out of my hands. Now, a lot of markers, they fit into all of these categories, or some of these categories, or just one of these categories. So some markers belong to all three. And so that's, in my system, mark means bite the toy that's in my hand. Well, that tells my dog right there, what the reinforcer is the toy. Where it's going to be, it's in my hand. And how, they're going to grab it. And so that tells my dog all three in one word. Versus good is more or less a location specific, meaning stay where you are, I'm going to be delivering this reward to you. And so I use good just for food, but sometimes with a couple of my dogs, it means toy or food. And it just depends on what I'm rewarding with in that moment. And so that one would, for those dogs, it just tells my dog where it's going to be delivered. And then yes is pretty ambiguous. That one, for a lot of my dogs, it's specific to the session, and it could happen at anywhere and can be rewarded with anything. And so the click, it works that way as well. A lot of times when we're free shaping behaviors, we're rewarding in different places. And so that click could mean a variety of things to my dog. So let's take a look at some marker examples. This is just my system. So if I use a word, doesn't mean you have to use that word. If you're like, well, I'm never going to use that marker, then don't use it. For example, the bite marker, unless you're doing protection sports, you probably shouldn't teach your dog to go bite somebody as a reinforcer. I don't think that's very safe. So let's just start at the top here. We have my clicker. That's a normal clicker. It's a click noise. I use this specifically for shaping new behaviors. And so that's my specific situation right over here. I don't use a clicker outside of this. And that's, for one thing, it tells my dogs that we are free shaping. And so it helps prevent them from throwing unwanted behaviors at me when we're not in a free shaping session. So that click means we're going to shape a new behavior. The food, or the reward type, is always food. And the marker type is always termination, meaning it's going to end the behavior to come get your reward, or end the behavior and chase down your reward, or however I'm delivering that reward. The placement is specific to the session. So if I'm free shaping a behavior where my dog needs to be in a down position, I'm probably going to be handing them the food, versus if I'm free shaping a behavior like going through my legs, then I'm probably going to be tossing the food. But it's going to be specific to that session, and the click does not tell my dog where they're going to get reinforced. Then we have yes. My formal yes does mean get food from my hand. It is a termination marker. And for the purposes of this workshop, that's what it's going to be. Yes is also my ambiguous one. It's my, oh no, I don't remember my markers today, I'm struggling. Yes means just come get whatever you can from my hand. And it fits kind of along the same rules here. So I do have kind of a throwaway marker, and it is yes. But for the purposes of this workshop, this is what yes means. Mark to my dogs means that they need to take the toy from my hand. So that's like a strike cue, come bite the toy and tug. It is a termination marker, meaning the behavior that they're doing ends. So if my dog is in a down stay and I say mark, they are allowed to leave that down stay to take the toy from my hand. Then I have taste or face, depends on the dog. This again is a toy reward type. It is a continuation marker, and it means I'm going to deliver the toy to their mouth. And so this is like if my dog is doing a downstay and I say face, that means I'm going to walk up and present that toy directly in their mouth so they can bite down and then we can play. So it is a continuation marker. It tells my dog maintain the behavior. I'm going to come to you and reward you. Bite to my protection sport dogs means bite the decoy. It is a termination marker. The placement is the leg or the arm, depending on what we're doing. And a specific situation is bite work. Yes, that is pretty obvious. Yes, I feel like I needed to say that just in case. Now we're going to get into a couple of real life markers, and this is for working around different environments, different distractions. There absolutely can be markers here. So if my dog is paying attention to me, for example, and they're offering me focus, I can mark that with a go say hi, which means it's they are allowed to go say hi and socially interact with that person or other dog. It is a termination marker. And so that works specifically in social greetings. And it's a very set up type thing, but it is a marker that ends the behavior and it is marking the focus on me. And the same with the go swim. So my dogs all love to go swim. And so if I am working around a pool, a lake, a kiddie pool, whatever it may be, and my dog is doing exceptionally well, I can mark whatever behavior that they are giving me with go swim, and that means they get to go to the lake or pool and swim. And this is great for working around a water source. So those are just some examples of different markers I use. I have a whole bunch of them, but these are the main ones, and especially the ones we're going to be talking about in the workshop today. Now we come to the question, why would I want to add more markers to my training? Oh, let me tell you. So I was always that person that said, nope, I don't need multiple markers. My dogs get it. I use a click. That's all I need. Until I went out to Posse Dog in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and I trained with Chad Byerly and Sarah Keegans, and they showed me all these possibilities for multiple markers, and it was amazing. And so that really opened up my eyes to the different possibilities, the different reasons why I might want to use multiple markers, and honestly, I haven't looked back yet. It has completely changed my training, and my communication with my dogs is so much better because of it, and I really do owe them all of that. All right, so let's go ahead and watch a video. I want you guys to really pay attention to what's happening after I say the marker. Try to think about any kind of benefits that you see by using multiple markers in this situation. And really just look at it with an open eye. Watch it a few times if you have to. Go back and reverse it. But yeah, let's go ahead and just watch this video of Creature doing bite work with multiple markers. Bye. Good boy. Out. Down. Good. Hey. What's for you, buddy? Drop. Face. Nice job. Drop. Get it. Good boy. Drop. All right, so what benefits did you see in that video? Reward placement's a huge one. So being able to reward my dog where he is. So that face marker, I was able to deliver the toy to his face. It prevented him from moving forward and possibly biting the leg sleeve instead of the toy. I'm also able to reward him behind a little bit more by doing a throw. So there's a lot of things you can play with reward placement. We're going to talk a little bit about that more in healing when we get to that point. I can also use hierarchy of reinforcement value. So obviously biting the leg sleeve is going to be a little bit higher naturally for a Malinois versus biting a boring old tug. That's the way their brain works. However, what I can do is I can reinforce him playing with the tug by by marking it with a bite and letting him bite the leg sleeve instead. That makes sense. So if he's tugging well on the toy, then I can go ahead and give the bite cue and he'll bite the leg instead as a reward for tugging on the tug. So using a reinforcer to reinforce a reinforcer, however that might work. Either way, I can utilize that hierarchy. The other thing is, in that hierarchy itself, he's never disappointed. He's never going, oh, I really wanted that leg sleeve, but I have to take this tug instead. He knows the second he hears a mark what he's getting, and he isn't disappointed from that. So I'm kind of protecting his emotions by playing in that hierarchy itself. I can also control his arousal level. So if I gave him nothing but leg bites, his arousal level would be through the roof. But because I'm asking him to think about what the markers mean in order to get his reinforcer, I'm already bringing him down a little bit. He doesn't know what reinforcer he's getting, and so he's going to have to listen to me. And so by being in that slightly more thoughtful state of mind, I'm adding a lot of control and impulse control around something that he really, really values. And so I'm able to move him up and down that arousal level and make sure that he's really kind of paying attention. It's also helping him learn verbal discrimination. And so with that verbal discrimination, he's having to pay attention once again to the markers coming out of my mouth in order to get that reinforcer. And so we all know verbal discrimination is very hard in a high arousal situation like bite work. And so this is teaching him in a game that he really enjoys how to pay attention. It also offers an evaluation of mindset. So if he isn't capable of playing this marker discrimination game in this way, and he's making mistakes about what he's supposed to be getting, so if I say get it, and he pops forward and bites the tug or bites my leg, that tells me that he's probably not in the mindset that I could ask for an out from the leg at this point. It means he's not being very thoughtful. And so I can use those markers and his reaction to those markers to see where his brain is at any point. So that's actually one of the biggest benefits I have from using multiple markers. I use it quite a bit in protection sports. So I'll send my dog for a long bite, which means he's going to be like crazy high. And then once he comes back to me, I'm going to go right back into my marker discrimination game, make sure he has a brain before I ask him to heel away from the decoy. And so it's really a giant, giant benefit. Now, regardless of complexity of our marker system, so you saw a pretty complex little game I had with Creature there. It's always important to be aware and consistent in your marker system, because that's what's going to provide your dog with that clear communication, and that's what's really going to help your relationship. So even if you only have 2 or 3 or 4 markers, as long as you're consistent, you're still getting those benefits. And those benefits are reduction in frustration, helps your dog speed up learning, and it helps build that better relationship like I've already mentioned. Now, it is important to remember to build a system that is based on you and your dog's needs. My system is definitely not your system, so that's very important to be aware of. Now, we're going to go back a little bit and talk about those benefits in more depth. And the first one we talked about is using markers to control emotions. And what that means is we can use the reinforcers that my dog really, really loves in order to reinforce them, accepting the ones they don't love as much. And we always know that disappointment is part of life, but we really don't want it to be part of our training, because if my dog is routinely feeling disappointed in their training sessions, that means that they're going to transfer that feeling of disappointment to the behaviors themselves and ultimately possibly to their relationship with me. And so I want to try to keep as many negative emotions out of my training as possible. And so reinforcement specific markers, so the marker that tells my dog what type of reinforcer they're getting, that is going to be the one that helps me decrease the disappointment when switching from a preferred reward to a less preferred one. So for example, if your dog really values food over toy, okay, so they go crazy about food, and you had just been rewarding with food in your session, and now you're like, oh, I want to switch to rewarding with a toy for whatever reason. There's lots of reasons to do that. And you mark your yes, and you throw a toy instead. There is that moment when your dog goes, hey, yes, that meant I was getting food, but now I'm getting a toy instead. All right, I'll go get the toy. Now, we could have gotten rid of that little disappointment by just telling our dogs in that moment what they're actually going to be getting. So instead of a yes, it might be Mark, come get your toy. And then they might still be a little disappointed, but it's not like you broke a promise to them or anything. It's not like you communicated to them in their mind that they're getting food and they got a toy instead. And so that's a very, very important part about all this. Delivery-specific markers can also be used to control excitement prior to reinforcement delivery, which that excitement can actually creep into the behavior itself. So what that means is you can use calm markers for calm behaviors and exciting markers for intense behaviors. If I used exciting markers for a calm behavior like this mat stay, so if I have Creature here and he really wants this ball and he wants me to throw the ball and I'm trying to teach him to be calm on this mat, that probably is not going to help in any way. If I want him to learn to be calm and settle on the mat, I should be giving food reinforcers instead of the ball reinforcer. I should be delivering that food in a way that my dog sees as calm as well. So scatters where they're going to have to sniff out each treat, slow delivery methods, that sort of thing. Now, if I want my dog to be very, very excited during a behavior, so something like down in motion, where I want my dogs to kind of slam into that down, I would definitely use a more exciting marker, meaning I might throw a ball, something more exciting for that dog. And that's going to help transfer those emotions, the emotion of getting that reinforcer, into the behavior itself. So that is a huge benefit to using multiple markers. Now, our dogs do anticipate rewards, and we can use our marker systems to utilize reward anticipation and use it to our benefit rather than our hindrance. So dogs will go where they anticipate the reward will happen. What happens if I reward my healing dog from my right hand across my body? My dog will ultimately forage, right? That means they're going to move forward in heel position. They might crab a little bit. They're not going to be in the correct heel position that I'm looking for anymore. Now, what happens is if we're like, okay, cool, well, I'll just adjust to where I reward my dog. If I mark and then reach to grab my treat like good mechanics instead of having the food in my hand, if I mark, there's always this split second where my dog lunges forward a little bit in anticipation of that reward. They lunge forward so they can get a better look to see where we're going to be delivering it. And that little lunge forward is actually going to help encourage foraging as well, because he's always going to be thinking about moving forward out of that position. So I can use my location-specific markers to tell my dog, nope, this time you're going to be rewarded behind you. This time you're going to be rewarded by taking the toy from my back. This time I'm going to throw the toy this way. This time I'm going to hand you the toy itself. So this can actually teach my dog to pay attention a little bit better in heel position, to listen to where the reward's going to be delivered, and I can adjust on the fly where I want to reward my dog. So if my dog had been foraging, I can reward behind. If my dog is lagging a little bit, I can start rewarding ahead again. And so I can go from rep to rep and adjust that reinforcement location rather than session to session. And that helps a ton. So let's watch a video really quick and then come back to the rest of these things. This video is Famous's healing position markers. And so I go through just a few of them here, and you can take a look and see if any of these would work for you and your dog. Get it? Oh my goodness. Ow. Grab. Loose. Mark. Grab. Grab. Loose. Loose. Good. Face. Good girl. Loose. Mark. Drop. Loose. Loose. Get it. Nice job. Good girl. Good girl. Very nice. Okay, so you saw a few different markers there. You can see how they can all help my dog learn the correct position in heel position. Sometimes they're necessary for every dog, sometimes they're not. And so make sure you take which ones you really want to use. Now, we can also use encouragement of weight shifts, so anticipation of where they're going to get reinforced in different behaviors as well outside of heel position. So if you think about position changes, if I have a dog who I want to teach position changes, so sit, down, stand, and I want their front feet to be frozen, that means I'm going to want their weight shifted to their front rather than to their rear. And so where I reinforce my dog is going to matter there. If I reinforce my dog continuously by throwing the toy behind, they actually might have their weight shifted on their rear end, which might make having frozen feet a little bit uncomfortable for them. Or if I reward my dog also in position changes always forward, meaning come get the reward from my hand, my dog actually might end up moving forward out of those position changes and creeping forward. And so I don't really want that either. And so I can play around with different reinforcers and different markers to help encourage weight shifts where I need them to be. Same thing with an out guard. So an out guard is when the dog lets go of a bite and they perform either sit or down in front of the decoy or the helper, and they don't bite again unless they're told to or unless they're cued to. And so that don't bite again is the really, really hard part. So a lot of times we reward our dogs with a rebite. However, by reinforcing our dogs with that rebite, we're actually encouraging them to be moving forward and might potentially add in some bad habits of biting when they're not supposed to. And so with the whole idea of not having to use punishment, I can actually change the reinforcement and have my decoy throw a ball or do some sort of other reinforcer. So my dog's not quite sure how they're going to get rewarded. And having that multiple marker system, so those different words that mean a different reinforcer, will prevent my dog from making the mistake of accidentally rebiting when they're not supposed to. So I'm avoiding that potential bad habit altogether. Our marker systems can also work with distance work. So in agility, for example, if I want my dog to learn to stay out further, I want to throw the toy for them or have a placed toy that they can run and take. If I need my dog paying more attention and shift the weight a little bit more towards handler focus, I might have the reward on me and have them come into me for a reward. And so having those markers that tell them, yes, take that toy out on the ground, or yes, I want to throw the toy, or come to me and get that toy, and being able to adjust on the fly is very, very helpful for distance work and agility, or even handler focus and agility.